Hey, guys.
Good morning. So I'm so excited for this kind of meeting of the minds and the mix of panels that we have represented today. I wanted to start off with more of an existential question because we're going to hear a lot of talk throughout this conference about trip planning through generative AI tools or AI overviews, and that's a very kind of definitive summary that comes through in trip planning, whereas in contrast, you all represent major user-generated content types of platforms. How do you see those two forces interplaying in the future? Are you worried about user-generated content that's so subjective and anecdotal losing any relevance? We'll start right here next to me with Eric.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I think, from my perspective, there's always going to be a place, like through the lens of Reddit, right? There's always going to be a place for UGC, for some real human recommendations, right? And I think that what we're seeing from a behavior change perspective, it's kind of playing out in front of us, right? We're seeing, and I'd actually be interested if anybody in the audience has done this before, but we're basically seeing that people are going to Google, they're typing in their search query, and they're appending Reddit to the end of their search query because they're looking for a specific counterpoint to AI, or they're looking for a human-based recommendation. Do you guys do that in the audience? Anybody? Michelle does. I see. Okay. Yeah. So I think that from that perspective, there's likely always going to be sort of a spot for human recommendations. I also think that when you think about the way people use AI for travel and the way that they use sort of human recommendations, human's good for sort of depth and specificity of content, right? So like if you are looking for what hotel makes the best martini in San Diego, like you're probably going to get that recommendation from a human being, right? I was poking around on Reddit actually yesterday. We're considering booking a trip to Puerto Rico for spring break, and you can get really specific. Like there was in one of the r/Puerto Rico travel communities that we have, somebody was talking about, hey, like how long is the wait time for this restaurant on this specific day, like at this time? So I think that like the type of sort of depth, specific sort of niche content, there's always going to be sort of an appetite for that, for just kind of a human-generated recommendation.
All right, Travis, you're video first instead of text first. Do you see things the same way?
So,
sorry, Travis. David. Both video first.
Video first, thank you. No, so I tend to advise clients on like 3 types of content, right? So you've got CGC, creator content, UGC, user content, and then AIGC, obviously, is the AI content. We've got different tools that we have clients use for each one, right? So we've got our creator marketplace for creator content. We have our content suite where you can boost user content, and we have like our TikTok Symphony tool where you can basically use our tools to like adapt lots of content and play in that space. And I think what's kind of important is just like to know how to use each one and like what users react to. So there's been like a huge burst of like AI content on TikTok recently, especially with like the launch of OpenAI and Sora. I'm sure you've all seen it. It's very entertaining. George Washington fighting Abraham Lincoln in a cage match, or the Queen on Love Island, or all this random content, right? And for a while it was like getting a lot of like views. But I think from like a recommendation point of view, what we find when we speak to our users is they still want human recommendations. So 67% of our users say that the most important recommendation they'll get for travel is from like a fellow traveler, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a real human, authentic experience.
What's the benefit of that compared to getting something generated in an AI overview or through a Gen AI tool?
Well, I think what we're seeing with what we're testing with travel brands now is like the AI content will play a role, but it's just at a different stage. So for example, it shouldn't be maybe the first thing you see from a brand. So maybe you're going to serve some creator content first that feels very authentic. Maybe you're going to serve some like sparked UGC, and then you can absolutely retarget with AI content. But I think it should be more of a retargeting tool and lower funnel versus like the thing you start with. And then what we have to discuss as well is what guardrails do you put in place. I was with Virgin Voyages last week, and they were saying how they don't allow any content of AI content of places where they don't service, right? So that's an interesting guardrail to put in place. There's going to be a lot more as the industry develops.
Travis?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, a couple things. First of all, I think there's a little bit of a misperception that AI is replacing search. I think what, Google had its earnings recently and shared that we're still seeing query growth grow with AI. In fact, it's accelerating.
That's a big statement.
Yeah, and information-seeking queries like travel are also growing. So we are seeing overall growth in search, and people are realizing as AI gets fused into search that people can do more with search, and so they're searching more different kinds of things. That said, I think you have you have AI is really good for aggregating and summarizing information. Video is much better for going deep and really trying to understand, is this a place that feels right for me? And particularly when you think about something like travel, where you're going to spend $5,000 for a vacation, you really want to get a feel for what it's like. And that's where we see video really playing a very important role. 2/3 of travelers say that they watch travel-related videos before making a booking when they're planning trips. And they come for the authentic experience of creators. What we see on YouTube is of the top 4,000 travel channels, 95% of those are not run by brands. They're run by individual creators. People follow these creators. They trust them because they like their taste. They are in the same budget category. And it lets them really get a feel for what is a place like, and is this a place I want to go? And so I think we feel like that role is not shrinking. We're not seeing declining growth. And we aren't seeing, while there is AI creation happening on all the platforms, and there's a lot of really interesting things happening there, we haven't seen replacing of authentic human content. People want content they can trust, and that's where I think YouTube really does a great job.
Well, there's been multiple references to trust already, so we'll just dive deeper into that because it's absolutely crucial. Especially on the audio-visual side, it's become scarily easy to generate content that is quite compelling. And that's not necessarily an issue when content exists purely to entertain, but in the trip planning world, this content is actually used to reference places people might actually want to visit or book. So how do you approach the mammoth task of making sure that the content on the platforms is still trustworthy in an age where it's getting quite easy to put out content that does not exist?
Yeah, I mean, I can start. So first of all, we have models. We can tell what's AI generated or not. So I think if there's a problem where we feel like there's AI is sort of infusing and creating issues, there are ways we can to manage that. That said, the way things work on YouTube, it's driven either by search or by recommendations, and we have the content people are looking for is trustworthy content. And so content that is not high quality doesn't tend to surface in our algorithms, and we haven't seen that being an issue. You also have the community aspect where communities are also moderating stuff. So if something is AI or it's fake or it's not accurate, the comments light up pretty quickly and people are saying this is not an authentic video.
Do you expect that to stop as those tools get better?
I think for entertainment-related content, I think there's lots of sort of funny, like, short-form videos you see floating around that are AI-generated, bears jumping on trampolines and stuff. I think that sort of stuff, it is entertaining, and I think that's fine. I think for people when they're looking for information and they're trying to really research something, which is what people are doing on these platforms, we just haven't seen so far. People want the authentic taste. They want creators that they can trust. These creators build up this trust over years. And I think they are going to continue to shine on the platform.
Eric, something akin to upvotes and moderation was mentioned there. Those are huge parts of the Reddit platform as well. So
yeah.
How do you approach this?
Stealing my thunder.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's the way I think about it through the lens of Reddit is sort of 3 layers of, I don't know, you can call it building trust and transparency on the platform. I think the first one is the fact that Reddit's an anonymous platform. So I go onto Reddit, I don't know how many people use Reddit in the audience, but I don't identify as Eric DeLange on Reddit. I identify as an anonymous username, so I can post sort of freely and authentically. That's one piece of it. Another piece of it, you mentioned the moderators. So mods are really interesting, and this I think is a very unique part of Reddit. The moderators are not paid. They do this purely for the love of the game, and they have, generally speaking, look, the rules are different for pretty much every community, for each mod, but almost always there's a rule in effect that's hey, if you're not posting about content that's relevant for this specific community, we're going to ban you. So that's, I think, another piece of it. And then the idea of upvoting, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? It's I think of it as kind of Darwinism for the best content. The community will tell you what's important for that community, right? And if it's relevant, if it's important, they'll upvote it and it'll appear at the top of the feed. If it's not, they'll downvote it. So I think just in a lot of ways, Reddit, that anonymous nature of the platform is sort of it breeds trust.
David, how do you make sure the travel content actually represents places that are visitable, bookable?
Yeah, so we're also a content graph. So I mean, it's the democratization of content, right? It's nothing to do with like following our social graph. It's really the quality of content's going to win, right? It's based on view time, so everyone's got the same chance of success. And AI content, like again, if it's strong content, if it's useful, if it's a value exchange, it will succeed. And if it's not, if it's this AI slop content, then it probably won't. People will get bored, right? And I think the way we think about AI is it's a really powerful creative tool for sure, like in terms of like adaption and like insight generation and like boosting productivity, incredible. So we're very much focused there from like a platform point of view. On the trust side, like it just has to adhere to our community guidelines. So we moderate it quite heavily, and we made a decision about a year ago that every single piece of AI content in TikTok, whether it comes from TikTok or from another platform like Sora or somewhere else, it will be labeled AIGC because there is like a potential for misinformation too. So. Yeah, it's a new area. We're obviously in the age of content right now. The question is, are we going to enter the age of AI? I guess we all have our own opinions on that, but we're just taking a pretty robust moderation approach to AI content.
All right, it doesn't sound like any of you are being kept awake at night by the fear that travelers are going to show up to properties that don't exist. There are some very different content types or audiences that use each of your platforms. So we're going to go around and I'm going to actually ask individual questions that are specific to each of your platforms. We'll start with Travis on the edge over here. I want to talk about long form video because there's been so much obsession with short form that I think marketers have almost forgotten that long form also has major conversion potential. So can you speak about the strategic approach that marketers should take in travel to long form and when they might actually prefer that versus use the short?
Yeah, so I think long form is one of the areas where YouTube is sort of unique as a platform, and I think a lot of people know this, but YouTube is the largest streaming service in the US today in the living room. So long form is a core part of what people do. What we see is that people are using long form and short form for different things. So short form is, short form represents maybe 70% of overall video impressions or video views. But people tend to use short form for, okay, I'm starting to research a topic, I want to get different opinions, get a quick sort of taste. And then once I have a better idea of the landscape, I want to go deep into long form. And then we see people going on the long form video. We actually see for travel advertisers on YouTube that 70% of the impressions they're getting is actually in the living room. And so you need to be thinking about this sort of living room use case where a lot of people want to sit on their couch and watch a 20-minute video about Aruba and really understand how they're going to plan their trip. From a conversion perspective, we see that 53% of overall conversions are happening on video that's longer than 90 seconds, and more than half of that is coming from much longer videos, sort of 5 minutes plus. So I think when you think about your strategy, you want to think about the short form as the way to sort of get people it's upper funnel. How do you get people into the shopping mood? And then when they want to go deep, they're going to want to go on long form, and that's probably the best place to play.
Okay, so long form is for a different stage of the research process. David,
Yeah.
Gen Z and TikTok, we have to acknowledge that at some point. You've captured a massive amount of attention, but it's from an audience that has not necessarily hit the peak of their spending capacity and their income potential. How do you think about the growth of your strategy with Gen Z as people actually become more capable of booking travel options financially?
Well, let's play it out. How many people here in the room use TikTok? Show of hands. Okay, not that representative actually. So what's interesting is, not to insult you guys, but what's interesting is TikTok, when I joined back in 2018, it would have heavily been like a Gen Z and millennial platform. That's absolutely true. I think what you're seeing now is it's much more like a diverse content platform with a diverse audience base. So today, like you have over half of America, 200 million Americans using TikTok every single day, right? And they're consuming a movie's worth of content every single day. So that's a huge amount of time spent, which is more in the realms of streaming than a social platform, right? Really, it's entertainment. It's not so much as social. And then from like a demo perspective, actually over half our users are over 35. And the fastest growing demo is 25 to 44. So really, like, there is a strong Gen Z audience, but it's a much more of a diverse content ecosystem. I think like what we need to do is, and how we're thinking about travel specifically and bringing that forward, I was at an offsite in Miami actually this week with our leadership team, and we were just talking about this. I would argue there's no bigger gap that exists in TikTok in terms of like the quality of the user product and the lag with the monetization product is travel. And it's probably because we grew up during COVID, and the travel industry was probably not doing as well during then. So we just didn't maybe prioritize the product as much. But on the user side, it's fascinating. It's a really powerful search tool. People are getting lots of travel tips or searching for travel content. The user behavior is there, and it's serving lots of relevant content in that space. So what we want to do is really prioritize that for next year from a monetization side. So our focus is going to be on like 3 things. See It, which will be like the discovery piece. So Spark Ads, brand auction, opening up more primetime inventory, giving you access to like buyouts and different things. Then search ads is going to be really important too, and search is a big piece of TikTok as well. And then finally, it's the book it piece, which is travel ads. So what we're going to do there is we're going to basically have the monetization product bring in some of the signals from the organic side and allow you to basically target the right traveler with the right ad at the right time, powered by Smart Plus and automation. And the final thing is like a real focus on like creative is going to be really important. Improving our signal quality is also going to be really important. And the last thing I would say is we're going to take our TikTok shop and like our commerce ecosystem and bring that to travel as well. So you guys might have seen TikTok maybe buy it, you might have heard of TikTok shop. What we want to have is a really frictionless commerce experience for travel as well. So that will impact Gen Z, but I think it's also a broader conversation for other demos.
Well, things are still in flux then in terms of the back end of the platform and the tools that need to become available to people in our industry specifically.
I think up until now they have been in flux. I think now we're ready. So I think with travel ads launched this year and with the commerce things we're going to launch next year, I think we're in good shape.
All right, lots of big statements on the stage this morning. Eric, I want to talk about creators and the lack thereof on Reddit, because a lot of other platforms that have them have been so excited about creators' ability to cultivate a persona, to have personal accountability for recommendations that are made. Reddit thrives off of anonymity, as you said before, and people are using it for trip planning anyway. So why is this working? When we've built up creators so much, why is the anonymous model thriving in some ways?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but I think anonymity essentially breeds trust and transparency on the platform. Like, you don't feel like you're being sold something on Reddit because of the anonymous nature of it.
But it seems counterintuitive in some other ways that anonymity can also mean lack of accountability.
Yeah, I think, my perspective, I think that, so lack of accountability, expand on that actually a little bit.
That when a creator makes a recommendation, they have to stand behind it in terms of their reputation, and when they mislead their audience, the audience unfollows or stops taking recommendations.
I see. Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, from my perspective, it's pretty simple. Like, do you trust a recommendation from a real person who doesn't have any skin in the game, or do you trust a recommendation from somebody who is being compensated to make the recommendation? So I think that, leaning into what's important on Reddit, the idea of sort of trust, transparency, people are posting only because they care about the communities that they're in. So again, going back to the idea of like, people just love the platform, they're doing it for love of the game. And so I don't think that people go to Reddit necessarily expecting to be kind of sold to. I think that they're expecting to have a real conversation with a real human being, and they're hoping to be able to get a recommendation that they find useful in the consideration phase when they're planning a trip.
Mm-hmm. So the incentives are pure.
My 2 cents, yes.
All right. We'll take it back to a couple questions for the whole group. We've talked on this stage over the years a lot about targeting on platforms like this and the massive challenges that brings when it comes to travel specifically. In a study we did on social media users and travel that included users of YouTube and TikTok, for instance, we had 57% of travelers say that the content that comes up in their feed reflected their taste in travel. Only 48% said it reflected a budget that they can access. That is some massive gaps that are out there in the industry in terms of who's getting served something relevant. How do you identify those high intent travelers who might actually book something and make sure that content is served to them that really matches their taste and the budget?
Yeah, it's a great question. So relevance is obviously super important to what we do. what you see when people are on YouTube and they're researching travel and people are coming and they're researching trips, those are high intent users. They are coming because they want to learn about a place, they want to discover, whether it's a hotel or a destination or a restaurant or a tour. They're coming to do sort of deep research. So that is a high intent traveler that you can target. We are working a lot on how do we bring relevance even higher. So we have a branded product. We also have a demand gen product. In the age of AI, we have access to models that are getting much more precise in terms of really understanding user intent and being able to match opportunities from an advertiser perspective with user intent. So I think what we're seeing from a ROAS perspective for advertisers, it's getting much, much stronger as you target people. And if you set your targets right, you will get good performance.
So working in your favor. Eric, you also have some traffic coming in from Google. So what's the situation with Reddit and targeting?
Yeah, so look, there's a bunch of stuff that we can do. I think the two that are probably most compelling for travel are community-based targeting. So we've got thousands of subreddits that are dedicated to travel. Like if you type in a city on Reddit, almost guaranteed there's going to be a travel subreddit for that city. So can get pretty specific that way. The other one that I think is kind of unique to Reddit is what we call conversation ads. So it's keyword targeting. Basically, it allows you to kind of extend your search strategy onto Reddit, so you can insert ads that are happening directly within the conversations on the platform. It's an very interesting product, right? Especially given where Reddit sits kind of at the intersection of search, social, and AI. For me, the conversation, it's like, the challenge for us is less, I think, about targeting. It's more about when we talk to brands, it's like, hey, how do we classify you? We don't know if you're search or if you're social, so we're kind of working through a little bit of that in real time, and obviously making sure that we're optimizing towards the right KPIs depending on who we're talking to. But a little bit of work to do there, but lots of sort of great opportunities to reach users at I think, various points of the funnel. Consideration being the big one for Reddit. Generally you go to Reddit, you're looking to validate something, or you're looking for a recommendation on a trip that you're likely about to book.
David, how do you make sure what people see is not just entertaining, but also actively relevant towards trip planning?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think it comes back to the point I was making before. I think that we have been very, very good on the user side, on the organic side, at showing real experiences of travel, right? So not just all the good things, but the realities of travel. There's obviously tips and hacks, but also there's realities you need to be aware of. Some trips aren't easy, some places aren't easy to travel to, et cetera. So I think that comes through very clear on the organic side. And when you're searching for a trip, I'm going to Korea soon, I'm going to Seoul. I've been getting lots of content around Korea, things I wasn't even thinking of, right? Which is great. So the user side's doing its job. I think previously on the monetization side, we didn't have a product that could do the same thing. And the biggest frustration would be if you're not getting real content on the ad side of things. If you want to book a hotel, but the room's unavailable, or if there's various dynamic choices that go into it. So that's why we've invested so much in travel ads. That'll be our big focus for next year. We just launched it a couple months ago, so it's in general availability, but we're still testing. We're looking for partners. But that's going to be a huge focus for us next year, is ensuring that the organic side's working well. Now we need to make sure that we're serving the right ad to the right traveler at the right time.
All right, we only have a short period of time left, so I'm going to ask a question that's hard to answer in a short period, and that will be the challenge. Booking links, why have they been so hard to integrate? What are we going to see next from each of your platforms?
Yeah, so if you want to, in advertisements, we have a demand gen product that lets you integrate links. And so I think there's a lot of interest in integrating with creators and partnering with creators and then embedding links there. We are rolling out some products here in the next couple of months that will make that much easier as well, to both find creators that are relevant to your market and then to partner with them to drive demand.
Okay, we'll stay tuned for even more announcements later. David?
Yeah, I'll just go really fast. I think obviously travel is more complicated than retail in terms of, it's not just a product SKU, there's dynamic factors to come into it. Totally understand that. I think the travel ads piece I spoke to, that's one thing we're working on. The second, again, is just frictionless commerce, right? So we have TikTok Shop. It's working really well from a closed-loop commerce point of view in the retail side. We want to bring that to travel. We're building some very native frictionless integrations with some travel partners now, and more to come on that next year.
Eric, last word.
Yeah, two things I'm going to say. One, and not that I'm going to punt on this, but I'm going to say we need to do a better job of Reddit as just an organization of telling the story about how Reddit is very much an endemic platform for travel. So there's that sort of piece of it. And then the other piece of it is we're very focused on building for the vertical this year. So things like DPA, getting a lot more specific in terms of our targeting, building a product suite for travel. That's something that we have on the product roadmap, plan to do a much better job of going forward.
All right, sounds like there's a lot of active development, and we will be asking you about it in future events, I'm sure. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
The path to excellence requires preparation for every step, confidence in a proven plan for the journey ahead, and constant innovation to continually drive performance. Speed and precision when shaving seconds off matters. And expert care that turns setbacks into comebacks. Great journeys are never taken alone, empowering travelers and enhancing experiences from the first leg to the final lap.